Are you stuck in the same old routine at work? Do you find yourself hitting a creative wall, unable to see beyond your current perspective? It's time to break free and unlock the power of fresh perspectives. David Gouthro, discover fresh perspectives. Today, we'll have some fresh perspectives from my guest, Malene Falch Colotla. Malene, welcome.
Thank you, David. Super happy to be here.
So just a little bit of background for how we came to be here today, Malene, is that you were walking your dog in front of my house. And in my very introverted way, came over to say hello and say, hey, I got a dog too, and started chatting. And I found the work that you do and your focus on the environment very, very interesting. So I thought you would be a fabulous guest on Discover Fresh Perspectives. So maybe you could start by telling us just a little bit about why the environment is so important to you and how you take that passion into the work that you do.
Sure. Thank you, David. Yeah, it was a real treat running into you, first of all. And, why is the environment important to me? I don't know that it's not important to anyone, really. I think what happened was that I gained more awareness of the situation that we're in terms of how we live and what effects that have on the climate and in general the environment that surrounds us. And so that's how I really got into the work that I'm doing today. I didn't grow up in a particular kind of very ecological aware family. I think we were, as most other families, just kind of living life and focused on what I guess most families are, just having fun and getting a good education and so on. So it wasn't until later in my life that I learned, and that learning just grew my appetite to learn more, and really I'm still on that journey.
So when you say that learning, was it through just self-exploration, through courses? So how did that come to be something so prominent in your life?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it actually, I guess, there are little kind of drips throughout your life, and then there are those kind of big moments that tend to be the ones that we really remember. And the moment for me was, I like to say, I watched the wrong or perhaps the right documentary. So that was really what awakened me. And that was back, I lived in Hong Kong at the time. So it must have been in 2017 or 2018. I forget. But it really opened my eyes and I got curious. And, I had a conversation with my husband and we started doing some research and we saw that, unfortunately, the scientific research is really backing what we learned through this documentary. And so that exploration kind of just started.
And sorry, what was that documentary? And is that something that folks can take a look at as well?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so the first one I watched was one called Cowspiracy, which now has many years on it. And that really goes into depth about the whole food system and just how wasteful it is in terms of, our growing consumption of animal products. And so that was the angle that took. But as I learned, there are so many connections, like everything is connected, right? And so, one thing is to look at the food system, but that connects into so many other systems. And so my journey has certainly widened in terms of focusing on much more than just the food system.
And
But that
so
was the place that I started.
that was the start. And I guess, there's sometimes it gets kind of whack on the side of the head that all of a sudden we wake up and
Yeah,
like we've been sleeping all our life. Then our eyes open. It's like, oh my gosh,
exactly.
compelled
Yeah,
to learn more.
yeah, exactly. It's like scales fell off my eyes, like literally. And the world started to look different. And, and I think that's such a gift we have as humans, right? Like if we keep an open mind and and take in information, of course, critically, but really try to understand, and not just on an intellectual level, but on a felt level. It really kind of creates a change of how we view the world. And so what we choose to do differently is not really something we need to apply. It's just something you kind of naturally start to do.
Interesting. Yeah. So, and it's almost like there's I'll probably get the wrong word here, but a craving or something, a sense of being unsettled that
Mhm.
that requires something being done with it. So,
Yeah.
so so from the time when you and your husband had that conversation, that awareness, maybe you could take me through a little bit of your journey. So, where to from that point in 2017?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, so I mean, so we hung around Hong Kong for a few more years, which was awesome. But we ended up moving to West Vancouver, which is why I had the good fortune of running into you, David. But we moved back in July of 2020. It was kind of deep COVID at the time. And we moved here because my husband has family living in West Vancouver. And so we wanted to be closer to them, and through those COVID times, I'm sure everyone remembers, we really kind of made a transition towards Zoom. A lot of options were all of the sudden available on Zoom that opened, I guess, new avenues. And one of the things that happened for me was I was attending a course over Zoom, and there was a no, you can see my background. You can see I have my little Common Earth Daisy up in the background. So I attended a course where there was, I guess, like maybe 5, 6, 7 of these little screens. And I was curious about who they were, where they came from. And I ended up in a breakout room with one of them. And so I couldn't help but ask, what is this? Who are you guys? And so I learned it was a newly established a nonprofit organization started out of Toronto. And what was really special about them, or at least from where I was coming from, was that they were interested in exploring the climate crisis, but they did it from a, how do you say, I guess from a perspective that was different than what I had heard from other places. So it was really about the course that I was doing when I found out about these was within kind of the coaching area. So it was really about how to, have a good coaching conversation, but more than that, about how we work as humans, kind of our human experience. And they had that perspective on the climate crisis, or kind of had incorporated that into how they approached the climate crisis. And I found that really interesting. And so I ended up doing their newly established course at the time, and I was deeply impacted by it, both in terms of what I learned on an intellectual level about kind of the state of the world, and but also again on that deeper emotional experiential level.
So what was different about that from other things that you'd read about or learned about with respect to the way it approached the
Yeah.
environment? Uh,
Well, yeah, it's a good question. So I guess what I had previously researched was really a lot of scientific articles. So that was my approach. And so of course that speaks to your intellect, which is super, super important. And, so I'm not in any way saying that that didn't have value. It certainly did. But what this course did for me was that it supplemented that with a felt experience. Um, and so for shifts to happen in terms of, how we view the world, it often requires, at least that has been my experience, a deeper transformation that goes beyond the intellect.
So what what did they do that helped made that like sometimes the greatest distance that we have to traverse in terms of changing ourselves is the distance in our head and our heart. So, so
Yeah.
so how did they get the sort of the heart part or the full body it
Yeah.
evolved? I mean, because I mean, I'm sure there's a content piece of it as well, but it was the way it was
Oh,
presented, or what was different?
yeah. Yeah, it's a great question. So the lens that is used in this course that I am now facilitating myself and have been doing for several years now is a systemic lens. So systems thinking is a big part of what we teach. Is really kind of how we start out the course. And systems thinking is really a way of understanding and analyzing very complex problems by viewing them as a part of an overall system rather than in isolation, right? So if we look at how we approach many problems in the world today, it tends to be from a very kind of reductionist perspective. We've had, as humans, since the scientific revolution, really great success with isolating parts and really investigating, analyzing, and we've discovered incredible things that way. So again, it's certainly not to discount that, but I feel that we've really gotten somewhat lost sometimes in those silos, and we forget to do the synthesis part, right? So what happens when we put more than when we look at more than just one part, but we try to put them together. And this is really what systems thinking does. It focuses on the interconnections. It has a more kind of holistic perspective. I can see that you have a question, David.
You can tell. It's my face all wrinkled up. Was that distracting you a little bit? So when I
No,
hear
but
so when I hear systems thinking is
yeah.
kind of like a another way of knowing, another way of looking at things, of perceiving what's
Mm,
going on. But
mm,
but how does that translate into that to me still sounds like a head thing. So how does it get
mhm,
down into the heart thing? So that as a result of understanding this is actually part of a system, I'm therefore going to do something differently, live differently. How does that
mm.
translation take place?
Yeah, I think systems thinking can be, and very often is, very intellectual. You're absolutely right about that. Now, there are several tools that you can use to kind of get it under your skin, so to speak, right? So, learning how a feedback loop works, to use both positive feedback loops, negative feedback loops, or balancing feedback loops as we would use. Um, but also tools like iceberg models. So understanding how, when you have an event at the top, at the tip of the iceberg, the one that kind of sticks over the ocean, well, that's where you have the actual action, right? Or you have the actual event taking place. But if you dig under the surface, well, you will have some structures in place as well that enable those events to happen. And if you go even further, you have what you would in systems language call your mental models. So
Mm.
basically, the thinking that really runs everything else, right? That is at the basis of it. And it is in that thinking part that was actually how I came to that first meeting with Common Earth, exploring that part, but seeing that in a larger perspective, understanding how, in Common Earth, we like to say, change your thinking, change the world. Seeing that a very, very important part when it is that we're trying to make a transition, we can't, we can't not, we can't only focus on, the events or, um, new technologies, new kind of new policies. It tends to happen kind of further up in the iceberg system. But if we keep trying to solve the problem with the same thinking that created the problem to begin with, we're not going to change anything. And I think by yeah, so by really kind of digging in and understanding the role that our thinking plays in the predicament that we're in, it naturally gets to a self-exploration because you can't help but you have to include yourself in that system, if that makes sense.
Well, it does. I mean, and I hope I'm not going down a rat hole here, but so ultimately what it comes down to is, that why there's that knowing doing gap. There's a Harvard book by the same title, the knowing doing gap, and how once we know things, does it necessarily convert into doing something differently? And when I think of systems thinking, and I don't know a lot about this, so you can just roll your eyes and say, you better do a little more read. Doesn't know what he's talking about. But to me, the important part of systems thinking is the realizing the interconnections. So if that sort of the fundamental belief that I have is that if I see something, I'm somehow in a position to do something about it, and somehow it's connected. The fact that you and I are miles apart right now, we actually are existing, or there's a gravitational attraction between the two of us. The fact that we can't feel it doesn't mean that it's not there. And I think the part of the thinking part that I think shifts is that I now see I am part of something. I'm not, sort of getting rid of the illusion of separateness, that all the problems are out there, and someone else has to fix it and do it, and that the fundamental thinking that part of the system is realize that I am part of the system and therefore able to influence the system. Am
Yeah,
I, am
exactly.
I going crazy here, or is that?
No, not at all. I think you very beautifully speak to what I would, I guess, call, the nestedness of systems, right?
Sorry, the
That
which? Oh,
the nest
nestedness. Okay.
nestedness, that you can't, ultimately the biggest system we can talk about is the universe, right? And you can nest everything down from that great system. Um, and and that's also why, in the Common Earth course, we spend quite a long time also looking just at our cosmological journey. So understanding the journey of the universe and how do we fit in as humans in that journey. So rather than, speaking to humans as this kind of mechanistic view that we were placed upon the earth, we really try to foster a narrative and an exploration where we emerged basically from this evolutionary journey that we share with everything, with every other living being, and for that matter, plants and trees.
So I totally subscribe to this. I imagine there's some people that take a very literal view of the Bible and say,
Mhm.
well, it's 7 days, like boom, we're there. So I can imagine there's some people that are, somewhat skeptical from a set of biases and beliefs that they have.
Mm.
But for someone that's open-minded and is interested in exploring this, maybe could you say a little bit more about the course and how it works? And you talked about, our cosmological origins, but some of the other pieces and sort of,
Right.
how, what, well, how long it goes, what the shifts are that you see happening in people. And if someone is interested in knowing more about the course, where would they go? We put a lot on the program notes as well, but you've got my curiosity hooked now as I grab my collar that no one can actually see, but maybe you can hear this as I snap it in front of the mic. So,
Yeah, no, yeah, no, that'll be my pleasure. Well, so maybe first to say, the course, we have two different courses. So we have kind of the long course that's called Insights, and that is spans over 13 weeks. It's twice, so it's 2 times a week for 13 weeks. So it's a relatively long course. And the first half, roughly, of the course, we really kind of dig into systems thinking. So we get a real good understanding of what that is, and we get practical with some tools to really kind of try and incorporate it also in our own lives. Because again, we want this to be a felt experience, right? So it's very kind of experiential in that sense. The journey of the universe, or the cosmological journey that we already touched upon, we have a whole piece around the nature of a human experience. So how do we work as humans? Um, and of course, that is everything is very interlinked, right? So it's all about making connections. When I say we go through these different things, it doesn't mean that those are separate things. It all connects together. And with that whole approach, we also look at the climate crisis and understanding, where are we right now, and what is going on. We try to use some systems thinking tools to really kind of decipher the processes that we see around us, from ecological systems to what's happened at the poles and so on.
Could you
So, yeah,
expand on that just a little bit, just so
on the climate crisis part.
well how it all connects or how we dived into it. Uh, I'm
Well,
just
so
trying.
to give you an Yeah, so to give you an example, we talked already about mental models and and when we talk about systems thinking, how, our thinking is really at the root of that. And that ties beautifully into, well, how do we work as humans? Are there some principles at play? So I would say that that is really an overarching approach that we have in the course is that we look for principles at play, whether we're talking about us as humans, the universe, ho- how we um, how we experience the world, really. Mhm.
So what if I was thinking about, how human beings interact with each other and where, to see a system or a pattern that again, could you give me an example of that? I'm just trying to, crystallize what that might look like, how I take that pattern at a macro level and bring it down to a micro level in terms of how I interact with you or with other people, like what kind of patterns I might see.
Sure. Well, so one thing that maybe is good to point out is we take the way that we look at the nature of a human experience is that it is an inside out experience rather than an outside in. So what does that mean? Well, that means that whatever we experience, it comes through us as thought. Now, hold that loosely, the concept of thought, right? Because I don't necessarily mean the content of our thinking. I'm talking about the fact that we think, right? That energy process, or however you want to talk about it. It comes through us, and we tie some kind of story to it, and that is our experience of life, essentially, right? Like I'm sure we've all had an experience of going through rough patches in our lives, and sometimes that feels harder than other times, even though the circumstances may exactly be the same. So
Mm.
that's just an illustration of how, our experience of life would always be an inside out experience. Just like when you're, yes, Rick, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, just like when you look at a system, right? Like that is a living system,
Mm.
will is different from a dead system, right? Like you can't. There's a big difference in, um, in how we report what we see out there versus how a camera records what's out there.
Okay. Yeah.
Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I'm just again trying to picture the course. So the course 13 weeks long, 2 sessions a week. How long are each of those sessions? And are they lectures or are they interactive or what's the format? Because sometimes people teach what to do based on not just the content, but how it's actually presented.
Yeah, so we really foster, or the intent is to foster a very tight community. And so everything happens together in the group, which is typically 12 to 15 participants, I would say. It's a very global cohort we have. We have over 50 different countries already represented in our alumni.
Wow.
Um, yeah, it's very, very global. And pretty much any cohort will have people from Asia and Africa and Europe and North America. And it's not that we make it so, it's just that, we always get a big influx of many, many different nationalities and from many different professions as well.
And
Um,
is there any commonality that you see among them, like sort of an avatar for the kind of person that would be drawn to this topic and also this form of work? Because I mean, the international aspect sounds fascinating, and I think the more we can feel that we're much bigger than just our little neighborhood and working on these
yeah,
things, I think it serves us very well. So, is
definitely.
there any commonality? How do people come to find Common Earth?
Some is word to mouth. So people that just have done the course and were really impacted by it, and we have many of those. We also partner with the different other organizations. So one we tend to get a lot of applicants from is the Systems Dynamic Society. So these are people typically that have some kind of systems background. But again, it's interesting because our cohorts is always a big mix of people that, some will have um, more experience with systems, some will have none, and it's all fine because the way that we approach it is different than what many people that are already used to working with, feedback loops and so on. They may not have thought of it in the way that we're working with it.
Hmm.
Um, so it's
That's,
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
and it's grown pretty quickly because I think you said
Yeah.
it started in 2017 or 18 or something like that.
No, 2020 actually
Oh,
was
2020. So 5 years and you already have international.
oh yeah, yeah. Yeah. I think we have, like 500 alumni or something like that, from 50 different countries and a great flourishing alumni base for sure.
And that's enough people connected around the world that can make a difference. Like if they stay connected, if there's a,
Well, that's exactly our intent. So, so part of the course, well, maybe just very briefly, once we have these kind of base elements in place, we start to look at different systems at play in our society. So the longer course that I mentioned, Insights, we will look at the economic system, we will look at the food system, we will really get a much better understanding of the role of energy and just how energy blind we are as a society. And we will tap into the power of community as well. And that is actually, to your point, David, where we really try and foster communities around the world that can help grow the awareness where they are through whatever activity that makes sense to them where they are in the world, right? So we have people that have started garden groups. We have people that, have started a book club. It looks different depending on both geographically where you are, but also, what is your interest and what's meaningful to you. But what it all has have in common is this kind of um, desire to what we call move to a post-carbon carrying society. So we really believe what's going to happen or what needs to happen is more of a bottom-up approach because what we're talking about is not going to happen politically. Like it's just not, it's a very inconvenient truth to get
Mhm.
to really see that, what we're up to is completely unsustainable.
Yeah, it's recall the words of a song that a friend of mine wrote and goes something like, you can't do all the world needs, but the world needs all that you can do.
Yeah.
So how you get people working together. I remember again, years ago, there was a book called The Evolution of Cooperation and
Yeah.
how cooperation evolves and sustains itself. And, you don't need a lot of people, but when you start to have enough of a collection that it's got some solidity that
Yeah.
maintains it through tough times, it's amazing the things that can happen.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think we talk a lot about emergence, right? Which is exactly a concept of when you put different parts together, new stuff arises. And this is really at the heart, again, taking a systems lens of what is going on. And so we are really putting our trust in that emergence of not necessarily having any answers, but 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 fostering a community and a mindset where we can respond more meaningfully than just trying to solve something that, frankly, is probably not really solvable. um,
Yeah, and when you start to think about, if you wait to start to do something until you decide it's solvable, you could wait a long time and never do anything. It's just
Very
how to
true.
get in motion in the right direction and just kind of keep that going. I have two specific questions about the course, and I didn't give you an opportunity to answer one of them, which is, so it's twice a week, but how long are each of those sessions?
Yeah. So the Insights course, like you said, is twice a week and is 2 hours each day. So that's a 4 hour commitment plus pre work, which we try to keep to an hour. So I would say it's a 5 hour commitment per week. But then we have an abbreviated version of it, which includes all those kind of base elements that I mentioned, but where we won't go in depth into the role of energy and the role of our economic system and so on. And that one's called the Reframing Climate Change.
Okay.
But you can see it all. It's all on our website, commonearth.com, where you can see our courses. And on top of that, we also do different types of workshops, both with schools and other
Oh,
types of organizations. So
okay. Oh, wow.
yeah.
Uh, cost.
Yeah, so the courses are actually completely free. They're funded by Common Earth. We have a very, um, I guess, passionate and lovely founder that right now is fully. So yeah, the course basically right now is fully funded by Common Earth.
Wow.
Uh, but what we ask in return, of course, or no, but what we ask in return is your full participation of really being there, engaging with the group, engaging with the material, and hopefully, we're not forcing anyone, but hopefully wanting also to stay connected to the community in whatever shape that makes sense. So,
Well,
yeah,
I would imagine something like that. That's been, its genesis was passion, and people presumably get that out of the course. That it's a group of alumni. I'm sure I know you're not asking now, but they may very well feel that the work is so important that even just a small way want to contribute to it, as well as telling other people about it. So,
exactly. Exactly. And I mean, we hope that people will want to start initiatives where they are, and perhaps some will also want to join in and volunteer some time in facilitating future courses. There can be many ways of staying connected. But yeah, it's we like I said, it's not a requirement for taking the course. You're not signing up for anything. What we do ask you for is your commitment and to going through the journey with us with an open mind. Um,
so I don't know if there's an easy way to answer this, but just to allay people's concerns that, well, I think this sounds like it might be a bit beyond me. Like I only have a grade 6 education or something like that. Like how accessible is it, intellectually?
yeah.
I'll just leave it open like that.
Yeah, no, I think, when we started it out, there was a lot of reading. We really tried to shave that down as much as we could. So they'll still be reading. And then it's a mix of that and some documentaries that we ask people to watch. But
Okay.
I think I mentioned like people really come from all walks of life. So, we've had anything from, you know, yoga teachers to university professors that's written systems thinking books. Like it's a really, really wide range and anything in between. We have retirees from different kind of backgrounds. We have professionals that work, as anything from, medical doctors to systems engineers or school teachers. Like we really have all walks of life. So, and we do before you commit to the course, we do have kind of an opportunity to have a conversation with someone from Common Earth that will explain to you what is it that we require. And it's not a screening as such. Like
Mhm.
we don't we like I said, what we require is an open mind and that you're going to participate and that you want to, contribute. But other than that, we're not going to test you or anything. It's not at all what it's about. Um,
So I'm hearing that you need a person would need the time and the commitment, an open mind, and a passion for the planet.
yeah, and a stable internet connection.
Oh,
Unfortunately,
oh yes.
that's sometimes not easy when, we've had many participants, especially, in Africa and places like that, where that can be a challenge. So yeah.
Well, we had a challenge connecting on Zoom, like
Well,
even though we've
see,
both
there
been
you
on it.
go.
Right? Today, it's like, yeah. So proof of that concept, of that theory. Well,
Exactly.
this has been great. I'm certainly intrigued. And now there's another cohort that's starting in August, I believe, or September. So,
September. Yeah, yeah, all right. Yeah, that's right. We'll start again in September, both the insights and I believe the reframing as well. Again, the dates are on our website and you can even sign up for it now. So if you're curious, we can have that conversation where you'll get more information about the course and what to expect and see whether that's something for you.
And so how important is it? I'm just projecting here, thinking to myself,
Yeah.
to be able to commit to all 13 weeks twice a week. Because, sometimes customers, I can't afford to not work for a day if a client wants me. But are there any, like, if you have to attend 10 out of 13, or just so
Yeah.
people know what they're committing to?
Yeah, no, good question. So we do ask for an 80% commitment. And then when you're there, definitely be present. And if life happens and, we'll be happy to send you the recording. So that's kind of how we do that. But it is something that we do. We meet live together because a big part of it is really getting together, and it's also something you don't want to miss it, because the bonds that happen throughout those weeks is really special.
I
And
can,
I think, yeah, go ahead.
can just imagine people look forward to the next one because they really get to like the people and the perspectives. So
Absolutely.
that's a good draw.
Absolutely. It totally is. Yeah.
So, Malene, thank you so very much for taking your time today. I'm certainly going to look at my schedule, and we've talked about this, and I'm personally am intrigued, and I think it's really important learning, expanding one's learning, so they can expand one's influence in the world. So, I hope to run into you in the neighborhood. I love my family to meet your family, my dog to meet your dog, and all those other kinds of relationships as well. But for today, thank you very much for your time and talking a little bit about what you're about and what Common Earth is about. Thank you so very much.
Oh, it was absolutely my pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity.
David Gouthro, Discover Fresh Perspectives. Come on back next week and we'll see what other perspectives we can explore. Subscribe now, because on Fresh Perspectives, every episode is an opportunity to explore new horizons and redefine what's achievable.